Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on Racing Grid with James and Max. I'm James.
I'm Max.
And today we're going to be talking about the drivers we feel are under the most pressure in 2025. Now, every driver is under pressure in a Formula One season, but we feel there are three in particular, those being Jack Doohan, Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda.
Well, I actually think there might be one more, and I'm not going to say who right now. We'll talk about it at the end of the video, and you might find it controversial, but let's have a discussion after.
Fair enough. So you heard the man. There might be four, but let's start with Doohan. As we know, he has signed a full-time contract with Alpine. He's in a full-time race seat with the team, and he's set to start the season with the team alongside Pierre Gasly. But as we know, Franco Colapinto has signed as a reserve driver with Alpine, and there has been a lot of talk that if Doohan does not perform, Colapinto could take that seat.
Yes, absolutely. Colapinto, as we know, got into that Williams halfway through the season, replacing Logan Sargent, and he did a phenomenal job. I will say he outperformed Albon in some races, which is very hard to do. Albon's a great racing driver, and Doohan's got some competition for sure. The other thing we've got to think about is Pierre Gasly had an amazing end of the season. He is a great driver. I mean, at Red Bull, he didn't show his true performance because I feel like Max was the top dog there and he maybe wasn't given enough time to develop. But at Alpine, he's really shown that he is a dominant driver. And just like Lawson and Verstappen, I feel like Doohan's going to have the pressure not just on himself to perform with other drivers, but also against Pierre Gasly.
That's a fair point. You know, Pierre Gasly, as you said at the end of 2024, he picked up that podium in Brazil, and he put in a few good performances in the last few races of the season, I feel. And I think it's pretty clear he's he's going to be unless Doohan pulls off something amazing, I think he's going to be the lead driver going into 2025. I have to say, in Abu Dhabi, do you remember he did the Grand Prix in place of Ocon? I wasn't wowed.
I wasn't impressed.
I have to say, I know.
I'd love for him to prove us
right. Yeah, 100%. I know it was his first race, and that's completely fair enough. It's going to be difficult, but I just go back to what Colapinto did in his first race. I know the Williams, it loves Monza because of all the straight line speed. I get that.
Yes, because Nick De Vries raced there in Monza in the Williams as well, and he outperformed the car also.
Exactly. So you've got to take that into consideration, but I still think Colapinto did a brilliant job in his first race. And you look at Doohan's first race. He was qualifying near the back in a car that Gasly I think got into the top 10 in qualifying, and then in the race there was just nothing amazing about the drive. Yes, you could put it down to he's learning about that Alpine, and there's more to come in 2025, but I just didn't see anything that made me go, what, this guy's going to be really good in 2025. As I say, I hope he can prove us wrong, but I just don't see it right now. And that's why I think, if in 5 races time he's not performing, I think Flavio Briatore will want to put Colapinto in that car.
Well, we know how brutal Alpine can be with their decisions, not only on drivers but also on team principals as well. We saw with Otmar Stadler how he just was shunted out of that position halfway through a season without really being told or given any explanation.
God, do you remember that? That was Belgium 2023. I couldn't believe that. He's just gone midway through the race weekend, and it's just, what's going on here? But
absolutely. And it seems like there's two main teams that happen to kind of be under pressure, which are the Alpines and it's the RBs, because obviously we talked about the other two being Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, both RB drivers last year. Liam Lawson, of course, replaced Daniel Ricciardo, and now he's replacing Sergio Perez at Red Bull. Yuki Tsunoda has been at RB for several seasons. Who do you think is more under pressure, James, out of the two?
Between Lawson and Tsunoda?
Yes.
I think Lawson for now, because I think we know how ruthless Red Bull have been. With Gasly in 2019, he was gone midway through the season.
Yeah.
With Albon, he was gone after a year and a half. With Sergio Perez, yes, they kept him longer because I think he helped Max incredibly, especially at the end of the 2021 season. In 2022, he actually looked like the lead driver at the start of the 2022 season, which was something I was not expecting. Obviously, that changed pretty quickly, but for a few races, it looked like Perez was on top, and then But then 2023 wasn't great. He still finished second, so Red Bull gave him a chance. But then 2024, after what was his worst year, I think.
Yep.
At that Red Bull just went nah, and they put someone else in the car. So we know Red Bull can be incredibly ruthless with their drivers. Now Lawson, he's not a rookie, but he's not done a lot of races in Formula One. He's going to have to get used to a new car. He's got Max Verstappen as his teammate. If he doesn't perform, it would not surprise me if midway through the season or at the end of the season, Red Bull decide they want to change.
So I completely agree with you. However, Lawson might be in a bit of a better position than Tsunoda, just from the fact that if he does mess up in a Red Bull, let's say, he's always got the option to say, well, you guys put me in a top team. I didn't have as much experience as maybe I thought. Put me back to RB, and maybe he'll just get put into another team.
Personally,
I don't think that will happen. But
personally, I cannot imagine Lawson going, put me back in an RB. That's not going to happen. He's going to fight tooth and nail to keep in that Red Bull.
It all really depends on the driving styles, because as we've heard from Albon and Perez and every single person who's been against Max Verstappen, the way that car is set up is very much driving on the nose. If Lawson likes that setup, which maybe he does, maybe they've done their testing in the back and they think that he has a similar driving style to Max Verstappen. Maybe he actually really performs well in that car, and maybe he loves the pressure. I mean, when he was racing against Daniel Ricciardo or took Daniel Ricciardo's seat, he knew he had to perform in those races, and he did. So I feel like when he's uncomfortable, he's actually better in that car.
Maybe we'll see. But for me, going back to your original question of who's under more pressure, Lawson or Tsunoda, definitely Lawson for performance reasons. I don't think Tsunoda is under pressure for performance reasons. He has gone out and he has, beaten lots of his teammates he's been up against. I think he's, close to mastering that RB now, if you like, and I think he's going to beat Isaac Hadjar. So in terms of performances, there is no pressure there, in my opinion, because I think he'll deliver another good season in the RB. It's more of a case of, if Lawson does perform in that Red Bull, Red Bull are going to keep Lawson, right? I think even if Lawson has a mediocre season, they'll keep him for one more. I think only if it's really, really bad will they take Lawson out. I think if it's mediocre or good, that he'll stay. So then Tsunoda can't get into that Red Bull. But then Tsunoda can't really stay at RB. At the end of the day, it's a junior team and Tsunoda is no longer a junior.
Absolutely.
So, in my opinion, he's more under pressure in terms of he needs to move on in his career. And where's he going to go? That's how I see it.
That is the big question. I think that's going to be the big question of 2025 once it gets rolled underway. If Liam Lawson, like you said, performs, where is there to go to Tsunoda? Especially if Antonelli performs, especially if Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, obviously nothing's going to happen at Ferrari with that. Nothing's going to happen with McLaren. So there are limited spaces.
I know. And as I've said, I think 3 times now, it's a junior team RB. And, they might want to put someone like Iwasa in that RB for 2026 maybe. So it's a difficult one for Tsunoda. It's a difficult position for him, but if I were him, I would be knocking on the door of Aston Martin.
Okay, we obviously did a video last week about someone going to Aston Martin, that person being Max Verstappen.
Potentially
would Lawrence Stroll be willing to trade out one of his Aston Martin?
I've had in that video we spoke a lot about Lawrence Stroll and would he be moved on from Formula One. I've had a long think about this since that video, and in my opinion, I could see if Stroll has a bad 2025, what will happen is Aston Martin going to Honda engines. So that's a big plus for Tsunoda, potentially getting into that Aston Martin. There's a good relationship there. I think we could see potentially Tsunoda convince his way in, sort of talk his way into that Aston Martin, and Honda help him talk his way in to that Aston Martin. So he takes that seat and he teams up with Fernando Alonso in 2026. and then 2026 maybe Alonso's last season, and then if for the reasons we discussed in the last video, Verstappen decides he wants to leave Red Bull, because let's say 2026 the car doesn't perform, in 2027 we could see a lineup of Verstappen and Tsunoda at Aston Martin. I've thought this all out.
That's a crazy speculation. I like your thinking though, but the one spanner in the work is that Felipe Drugovich has been a reserve driver for many years, and I feel like he would deserve the chance over Lance Stroll versus
factor into my thinking, I have to say. I think though, in terms of Felipe Drugovich, and Joe, that's actually kind of sad that it didn't factor in because he's such a good driver, but I think by constantly being a reserve driver, he's just
there.
The boat's nearly gone completely. I'd love to see him in Formula One, but yeah, it's tricky. I think Drugovich would have to be moved on to another team, maybe. He deserves his chance, but I think with the way Aston Martin are potentially going, I could potentially see 2027 Verstappen and Tsunoda being a lineup there. Not definite, but maybe.
That's interesting. Okay, so we talked about these three drivers, Doohan, Lawson, and Tsunoda. You think that Lawson's under more pressure than Tsunoda?
I do, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I still think Tsunoda has to find another drive away from RB.
Yes, and Doohan's probably under more pressure than Liam Lawson and Tsunoda combined, to be honest, with how many people are gunning for that seat. But I think there is one other driver that might be under pressure too, and that driver, and you might find this controversial, is Alexander Albon. And the reason why I say this is Alex Albon's a great driver. He's been at Williams for a couple of years now, and he's had two partners. He's had Logan Sargent. In fact, he has three. He's had Logan Sargent. He's had Nicholas Latifi, and he's had now Franco Colapinto. And all of these drivers, I don't think have matched his performance at the moment. I think that they were all kind of second grade drivers in regards to what he can do performance wise, apart from Franco Colapinto who did match him. But Carlos Sainz is coming from Ferrari, from a top team. He's come from McLaren, from Renault, and he constantly proved that he was pretty much on par, if not the top driver at those teams. I mean, you might disagree with Ferrari, but I think Carlos Sainz did in a way come out on top.
I don't disagree with you in regards to the Ferrari thing. I think 2022, it was very clear that Leclerc was beating Sainz. I don't think even you can disagree.
No.
Sainz, I think, is Max's favourite driver.
My favourite,
yeah.
I think so.
So I think, but I think you can agree with me that Leclerc was better than Sainz in 2022.
Yes.
But I think 2023 and 2024, I agree. I think we saw Sainz get up there more, be more on par with Leclerc. I mean, Sainz was the only driver to win a race other than Red Bull in 2023, I think. So, Sainz is an incredibly experienced and an incredibly good driver. There is no doubt about that.
He is.
And going to that Williams, yeah, sure, what more I think about it, yeah, I think it does put Alex Albon under pressure.
Yeah, I think we're going to really find out in these qualifying head-to-heads as well, just how many are won by Albon and how many are won by Carlos Sainz. I don't think so much the race pace is going to make too much of a difference if Williams haven't upped their performance and got their car in a fighting position. But I think that what's going to determine it is where they can qualify and where they can really put that car over a lap.
But what are your thoughts on our opinions? Let us know in the comments below.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.
Take care, everyone. Bye.